A powerful empire once seen as untouchable is beginning to tremble from within. The system that Vladimir Putin built over decades, crafted through control, fear, and loyalty, has started to show signs of collapse. Across the border, Belarus, once considered one of Russia's most obedient allies, is taking bold steps toward freedom. This moment marks a dramatic shift in Eastern Europe's political landscape. What caused Putin's system to break down? How did Belarus gather the courage to step away from Moscow's grip? And what does this mean for the future of the region? Today on FreedomCast News, we uncover the inside story behind this massive transformation. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the FreedomCast News channel, your trusted source for fearless global updates. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to stay updated with our daily world news and deep analysis. Now, let's dive into today's gripping story. Putin's system crashes. Belarus leaders choose freedom. From the outside, Putin's system always appeared strong, polished, and unstoppable. He projected power through his military parades, media control, and political dominance across former Soviet territories. His network of loyal leaders, from Belarus to Kazakhstan, created an illusion of unbreakable unity. It was a system built on fear and authority, not collaboration and trust. Russia's influence was visible in everything, from energy deals to military bases, from news propaganda to secret political funding. For years, the Kremlin maintained this powerful exterior image, one that made even the West cautious. But like every empire built on control, cracks started to appear from within. The world began to see that beneath the surface of strength, there was instability, frustration, and resistance. Inside Putin's system, the reality was far more fragile. The internal structure that held the empire together depended on fear and manipulation. Every decision flowed downward from Moscow, leaving no room for independent thought or reform. Allies like Belarus followed orders not out of respect, but out of necessity. The leaders of these neighboring nations knew that disobedience could lead to political or even personal destruction. But as years passed, the inner circle began to suffocate. Economic pressure, international sanctions, and internal corruption made the system heavy and slow. Even loyal partners began to wonder whether this alliance still benefited them. Belarus, feeling the impact of global isolation and watching the chaos of Russia's wars, started quietly reconsidering its position. Inside their government halls, new conversations began about autonomy, sovereignty, and a future free from Russian interference. When examining the performance of Putin's political machine, one thing becomes clear. What once worked as a powerful propaganda engine has now turned into a failing, outdated structure. In the early 2000s, the Russian system moved fast and decisively. Putin positioned himself as the savior of a crumbling post-Soviet nation. His rule brought temporary stability, economic growth, and national pride. But over time, the very system that gave him control also trapped him. He relied on censorship instead of dialogue, loyalty instead of innovation, and fear instead of trust. When global events like the Ukraine war and economic sanctions hit, his system couldn't perform under pressure. Instead of adapting, it resisted change, just like a car that refuses to start in the cold. Belarus, which once copied Russia's model of governance, began to see those weaknesses. Its leaders realized that following the same path could lead them into disaster. Safety, ironically, was the foundation upon which Putin built his empire. He promised protection to his people, stability to his allies, and defense against the West. Yet, the deeper one looked, the more that safety resembled a cage. In the name of security, dissent was crushed, journalists disappeared, and free speech vanished. Entire populations were told that the only way to stay safe was to obey. For many years, this illusion worked. But the world has changed. Belarusians, especially the younger generation, have grown up with access to global information. They can see how people live in freedom and democracy. they began to ask, why must safety mean silence? Why must order mean oppression? And as Russia's wars dragged on, that false promise of safety began to crumble. Belarus, seeing how Putin's security model was destroying lives and economies, realized that the only true protection comes from independence and unity, not submission and fear. This transformation carries powerful symbolism. Belarus's choice to move away from Moscow's oar, it is not merely a political decision, it's a declaration of identity. It tells the world that even the strongest system of control cannot suppress the human desire for freedom forever. This shift is historic because it represents the first real fracture in Putin's once solid wall of influence. For decades, Russia dictated the course of its neighboring nations, often using energy, military, and propaganda as tools of control. But now, the spell is breaking. Belarusian leaders are looking west, not east. They're engaging in new diplomatic talks, strengthening ties with Europe, and listening to the voices of their own people. This change doesn't just threaten Russia's regional dominance, it also signals the beginning of a larger ideological collapse. However, freedom comes at a cost. The price Belarus must pay for this new direction is enormous. Economically, they will face the loss of Russian subsidies, trade restrictions, and energy pressure. Politically, they risk retaliation from Moscow through cyber attacks, media manipulation, or even covert operations to destabilize the government. Yet, despite these risks, the leaders of Belarus seem determined to push forward. They understand that true independence can only be earned through sacrifice. Every nation that has fought for freedom has faced similar challenges. The road is never easy, but the reward, self-determination and dignity, is worth every hardship. The Belarusian people, too, are ready for this challenge. Years of protest, imprisonment, and silence have only strengthened their resolve. Now, with the global spotlight on them, they are writing their own chapter of history. Putin's system, meanwhile, is facing consequences of its own making. Internally, the cracks are spreading. Economic struggles, public dissatisfaction, and growing distrust among his inner circle are weakening the structure of power. Russia's influence abroad is shrinking, and its image as an unstoppable force is fading. The once loyal allies are rethinking their future, one after another. What's left is a system that appears strong, but is hollow inside, like a giant statue made of sand. Belarus's defection is not just symbolic, it's contagious. It tells other nations under similar pressure that change is possible. It shows that even after decades of control, freedom can still find its way through the cracks. The world is now watching closely. Western nations are cautiously optimistic, offering diplomatic and economic support to Belarus as it begins to distance itself from Russia. At the same time, global analysts warn that Moscow will not let this transition happen easily. Putin has built his entire political career on the idea of restoring Russian dominance. Losing Belarus would mean losing not just a neighbor, but a key part of that legacy. However, history teaches us that no empire lasts forever. Every system built on fear eventually collapses under the weight of its own lies. The Soviet Union fell in a similar way, crumbling from within even while appearing strong to the outside world. The same pattern is now visible again. For the people of Belarus, this moment represents both danger and hope. It's the beginning of a new national awakening. The country's leaders are taking steps to ensure greater political transparency, better human rights protections, and closer relations with European democracies. These efforts are not just political strategies, they're emotional statements of identity. Belarusians are saying to the world, we are not a shadow of Russia, we are our own nation with our own voice. This message resonates deeply, not just in Eastern Europe but across the world, where people continue to fight against oppression in different forms. In the end, the fall of Putin's system is not simply about politics. It's about people, it's about courage, truth, and the unstoppable human spirit. For decades, fear kept millions silent, but fear can only last so long before it turns into defiance. Belarus's decision to choose freedom is a reminder that no system, no matter how powerful, can control the human desire for dignity. It's a spark that may ignite across other regions still living under authoritarian rule. The future remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the era of blind obedience to Moscow is fading. As we close this report, one question remains: what happens next? Will Belarus stand firm against Moscow's pressure, or will Russia try to pull it back through power or persuasion? Will other nations follow this example, or will they remain silent out of fear? The next few months will determine whether this moment becomes a turning point in global history or just another chapter in the long struggle for freedom. One thing is certain: the old order is changing. The illusion of unbreakable control is over. The people of Belarus have made their choice, and the world is watching. This is FreedomCast News, where truth meets courage and every story matters. If you believe in independent journalism and want to stay updated on stories that shape the world, make sure to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's keep shining light where others spread darkness. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next update right here on FreedomCast News, the voice of the uncensored world.